Hello nerds, and welcome to the Geek Girl Story Salon, where I talk to creatives from across disciplines and across the world about the art of storytelling. I'm your host, Jen Jackalone, lifelong storyteller and head geek in charge. Fun fact, I'm just $5 million short on my GoFundMe goal of raising enough to upgrade my car to a TARDIS. My guest today has been part of an awful lot of beloved sci-fi and fantasy properties, including Star Trek, Xena, and Star Wars. You may remember her as Maris Brood from the Force Unleashed game, or Lexa Singh from Star Trek Renegades, or welcome to the show, Adrienne Wilkinson.
Oh, thank you so much. What a very sweet introduction. I was laughing in the back of my mind because out of nowhere came this memory when you talked about $5 million.
Okay.
Where I was once told, yes, this role could be yours if you could just bring $5 million to the table to get us funded. And I thought, I don't think that's how that works.
Usually. How badly did you want to do the role, though, is the question.
Oh, barely at all, but definitely not at all once I had to pay myself.
That's definitely an unusual job requirement. Bring $5 million and then we'll think about paying you.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
Word for it. So I know we don't have a whole lot of time today, and I have a few questions, so I'd love to just get into it.
Sure, whatever you need.
As you know, this is a show about story and storytelling. And so one of the first questions I like to ask sometimes is, if we were at a wedding or some event, let's say, we're in line for, the fancy martini with the, flavoring in it, whatever. But it's a line and we're chatting, and I seem like a nice person and you seem like a nice person. And I finally get around to asking, so what's your story? What do you tell me?
If I met you at a wedding and didn't think that I would see you again and felt there was no harm, the truth is I would make up everything about me. I would have more fun with it. Whoever I'm with, we would turn it into a game. I say this from experience. I have done this many times. And, I'll tell you all about how I stock the shelves at Staples, or how I make my living hula hooping, or, fill in the blank. I'll just come up with the most outlandish or mundane thing and try to make it, creative and fun. And the reason I do that is not because I'm a massive liar on a normal day, but actually because I really do think we're all storytellers. I think almost everything we do is storytelling, from whether it's the art we're creating in various mediums, all the way down to the outfit that we're wearing. We're all telling stories all the time. And I really think it is a staple item of humanity. I really think it's a survival thing that we all have. It's how we understand our own lives and history and what's going on around us. So yeah, I very rarely call myself an actor. I always say I'm a storyteller, because that's where I think it all boils down to.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's just, it's how we make sense of things, I think.
Exactly.
That's how we give meaning to all the scattered input that, comes through to us.
Meaning and understanding, both.
So I have a question. What would you say is the most diehard fan base you've experienced so far?
Well, I have to go with the longest. The longest fan base, aside from my parents, the longest fan base would be Xena Warrior Princess. I brought a little item for for the players at home. I've been lucky to have dipped my toes into multiple mediums and multiple genres, but the Xenites have just stuck around in a way and with a level of loyalty that I just never could have anticipated. I certainly loved the show when I was on it. It was an absolute joy to make. It was, I'd say, the biggest adventure of my life. But who thought we'd still be talking about it? And most definitely, who thought there would still be this influx of brand new fans that happens every year when they find it on streaming or, find some old DVDs or something. Mm-hmm. So it's really incredible. It's a community that, I sort of feel like are my extended family because I see at least some of them somewhere in the world every year. So it's pretty fantastic and an absolute privilege.
Yeah. Well, Steven's great. He actually was on last season, and he's a riot. Like
he is. Yeah, Steven is. I feel like he's like a vaudevillian trapped in modern times. He has all of these random skills. He could entertain you at any moment and in the most surprising ways. So yeah, Steven is a hoot.
Random skills.
Of Steven's?
No. Do you have random skills? Like, I know you sing. I've seen video of that. But, are you secretly hiding like a glass blowing talent or anything like that?
I so wish I was hiding a glass blowing talent. I used to live someplace. I used to live in Missouri, which is the home of Silver Dollar City, which is this theme park. But the gimmick of the theme park is that it's the 1880s. And so there's blacksmiths and glass blowers and all kinds of things like that. And I always found it really, really fascinating. I'm really lame at this moment. I feel like I have a lot of small skills, but I don't have like the crazy one that I can, just throw on the table and like drop the mic moment. I think I'm like a lot of actors where my career has allowed me to know a little bit about a lot of things because I have to know it in the moment and I have to be able to pretend I'm good at something for that day. And then, I never pick it up again. So I don't know. I think my biggest skill in life is just that I'm really curious. I love learning. It's a constant, it's a well that's never full. And the older I get, the more I appreciate that about myself because there's endless things that are fascinating in this world.
Definitely. In fact, my ADHD does something similar for me.
Very true.
I pick up a lot of different things and I learn a little bit about a lot of different things. And sometimes I go down a rabbit hole and learn a lot about a thing. And
sure.
And then everyone around me gets tired of listening to me talk about it.
Well, they signed up to, be part of your life. So this is, it's just part and parcel to the whole package.
But listen, my sphere is not a bad place to be right now because I'm talking to cool people like you. So.
Oh, fantastic.
So, all right. So you seem to have, at this point, you have a collection of like genre properties that you've been involved in. It's like, a series of Funko Pops. I feel like you could have your own series of Funkos from Star Wars and Trek and Xena. And so if you could pick, what genre property would you like to be part of next?
Well, first of all, can we call Funko and make that happen? Because I'd be first in line to buy those. That would be fun.
Absolutely.
I mean, the sort of obvious answer is like, oh, I'd love to be in Marvel. I'd love to be a superhero of this or that sort, which of course would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I am the most drawn to the thing that just lights me up is historic fiction. So if I could do like a Peaky Blinders kind of a thing, that sort of thing, but from more of a women's perspective. There's so many female stories that haven't been told and that are absolutely badass and amazing. And that's the thing that I want to do. Like, superheroes are incredible, but the thing I actually love is when you find people who have been their own superhero and being able to portray that kind of a person and that kind of experience. Woo! I would, trade all the tea in China for that. So.
Well, I'm a huge history nerd myself, actually. So, actually, I'm going to share a secret if you don't mind, which is that I found out that Queen Elizabeth met in person and negotiated with Grace O'Malley, the Pirate Queen.
Oh,
I've never heard about this until really recently, and I've been obsessed with it. Can you imagine?
I can, and I'm getting shivers down my spine because it's so delicious.
And they spoke in Latin most of the time because that was,
of course, they did.
The educated class. That's what you did, But yeah, I'm like, I need to write that movie. I don't know when, but I need to make that happen.
Oh, sign me up. I mean, yes, I would like to be in that movie, but I'd also like to be in the audience watching that movie. That sounds fantastic.
So what do you think, Pirate Queen?
Oh, sign me up. Oh, yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd be like an extra in the background just to be able to support that story because it just sounds so great.
Yeah. I mean, I usually like to mix a little fantasy with my history, but that one, I think you can just take it as is, and
I
think it's really rich.
It's about as fantastical as you can get already.
Do you get this sometimes when you get an idea and your brain just kind of chews on it in the background of everything? It's doing that.
I think that's how we're meant to operate because it's like I call it marinating. Like these ideas have to marinate in the background. Like if you give them your whole focus, they hide. They're not quite ready yet. They need to marinate until they're ready and until you're ready, until you have also cooked enough that you're ready for that idea.
I'm laughing now because I call it the same thing. I call it marinating.
Right.
Yeah. Or, and then you'll just be laying in bed one night and like it'll crawl up out of the darkness and like deposit something.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. Have you ever had this experience? Because I've only had it a handful of times, but it is undeniable. It is impossible to ignore. It'll be like 2 a.m, you're fast asleep, and then all of a sudden I wake up and I have to write and write and write and write and write. And it's the idea that has been in the background just simmering away, and then all of a sudden it's like, no, you need all of this stuff right now. And then you'll think, oh, I'm on a roll. Yeah, exactly. And my favorite part about that is that my ego thinks, oh, good, I'm going to have this whole thing done in 2 weeks. And then it was like, no, the 2 hours at 2 a.m., that's all you get. So be grateful for what you're given.
Yeah. It sort of feels like your cat. I don't know if you have cats. I have a cat. Like when he'll come up out of nowhere, cough up a hairball, and then disappear. And I'm like,
yes, it's like that. That's also how I've described it.
And you're just left sitting there like, what? Okay, thanks.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And so it's fun being a creative person because there's parts of your brain that you don't totally understand,
Not at all, but I think we're starting to understand that that's all of us and our relationship to our brain. First of all, we're all creators. So whether you consider yourself a creative person or not, you're creating your life every day. Mm-hmm. So there is constantly this creative energy that runs in the background for all of us. And it's hilarious the way we can predict ourselves, but the ways in which we have no idea, where we're constantly surprising ourselves and just, you're not living life right unless you are learning new things about yourself every year and growing and embracing and letting go of other things and, falling down various rabbit holes that just seem interesting to you.
Absolutely, 100%. Okay, so this is like one of my actor questions that I like to ask. Which of the characters, the many characters that you played, which one do you feel like you relate to the most?
Ooh, I love this question. I'm going to spin it on its head a little bit. I've played a lot of sort of outlandish, otherworldly characters. I could go back to Livia and say I want to murder a lot of people, but that's not really generally how my personality is, fortunately. But I guess what I would say is one of the fascinating parts about being an actor is that every character you get to explore lets you explore a different type of personality and a different type of lifestyle, a different life lived. And inevitably, having that experience enriches you and it connects you to those pieces in yourself that are similar. So the truth is, with Livia, what I loved about that character and what I really enjoyed about playing her is that she had confidence for days. She had no self-doubt. She was, a walking rock star who just every room she went into was, "You're welcome." And, she was really enjoying it. I mean, she was a psychopath, but she was also really charismatic and smart and savvy and, all of these wonderful things. And inevitably, there's parts of you that when you are acting that confident for that many hours a day, you take on some of it, at least to a degree. And I mean, the flip side is when I came back to myself as Eve, there was so much self-doubt and there was, just a lack of confidence. And that was really difficult to embody because it felt so unsatisfying after having felt so satisfied so recently. And so I had to be very careful to actively not take on too much of that. And I think that happens with almost every character, even if you're just playing them for a day, there is something about their life experience. You have to truly embody. Your body has to understand those experiences, the walk a mile in someone else's shoes type of philosophy. So every character you can go through and see bits and pieces that I was able to explore. There was a character that I played when I was in my early 20s, but after Xena, where she was just a highly sexualized character. And that was so foreign to me. And she dressed provocatively. And I was so uncomfortable when that job first started. But I had to, because I judged her, because I had a lot of judgment about it. But I had to learn to recognize that that's where she felt her power was. And so, judging her did me absolutely no good as an actress. So I had to figure out how to embrace these parts of her without losing myself and find a happy medium between them. So I think that's kind of it's the journey. That sounds kind of like a big cheesy word, but it's, you're walking this path with them, whether it's for a day or a few years. So it's or creatively, you're walking paths with, your characters as a writer for years and all of that. So you have to be willing to be surprised and delighted and accepting and open to what it is that they want to teach you. And also to have boundaries, to also understand like, ooh, that I'm taking too much of that on. I need to slow my roll there,
Yeah, which actually, I wondered when you get into a character that has whatever it is, just something that's really difficult for you to embrace. Maybe it's trauma, or maybe it's something else. Do you have anything you do or you have to do to kind of mentally prepare yourself before you step into that?
I have an answer for this question that is, it sounds dismissive, but it's true.
Okay.
The answer, my motivation for every job I ever have is don't get fired. So, I have to find a way to make it work. But I have to know that this is my philosophy on working. It's been this way from, I wouldn't say day one, but I would say within like the first 2 years of my life. I don't really believe in stage fright. I believe it exists, but I believe it is absolutely, it doesn't serve a positive purpose. So what I chose to believe many, many years ago is that if a job comes to me, I am the person who's meant to do that job. And I may not know how I'm going to do it today, but I will find it in time. And I just have to keep exploring it, thinking about it, trying on different bits and pieces of the personality until I find the one that works for me. If I am scared that I'm not going to find it, or that they miscast me, or I can't do that, then I'm right. I can't do that. I will never be able to do it. But if I have the belief that the people who hired me are not fools, they saw something in me, so I have to see it too. And I look for it until I find it. And as long as I trust that it's there, I will find it. And I also have to trust, acting as a team sport. It's not one person. And unless you're, actually, I was about to say, even if you're doing, like a monologue or a one-man show, but even a one-man show has a whole staff working behind the scenes. So it is a team of people that makes this happen. And I also have to trust that team. So if I think I'm going to look stupid throwing this punch, I have to trust that the stunt person is going to teach me how to do it and not look like a fool, or that my doubles will help me to create this illusion. I am very communicative with people that I work with because I love for it to be a collaboration. It's my favorite part of the business. So I want them to know, I want wardrobe to know, like, this part of my body I'm not super comfortable with. So it would be great if, for me, you would amplify something else instead. And sometimes they won't because it's not right for the character. But either way, as long as we're communicating, we find something that works in the end. And then you just have to sort of throw it all away and trust and just jump in and say, okay, we're going to make it work. And I'm a huge believer that terrible takes are a part of the process. So I also don't let that stop me. And I usually think those are the first one or two. Like, sometimes the first take is amazing, but a lot of times the first take is the one that's really rocky and it's not right because you're feeling out different things and there's still some confusion in the air. So I never freak out when there's a bad take. I think that's part of the process. And by allowing it to be part of the process, it can show up and say hi and then get the hell out of there and not ruin things.
Absolutely. I think that's very true in any creative discipline. Is you have to give yourself room to fail.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's one of the best things I've heard about a first draft is that all a first draft has to do to be perfect is exist. Like, it can be, you can end up throwing away every word you've written, but the fact that you've written it is all that you need.
Yeah, it's, so much of it is getting past the tyranny of the blank page, right?
Yes. Yeah. The fear of beginning.
Can you tell, like, when you've done a take and it just sucked, can you feel that, like, as you're doing it, or do you have to watch back and...
Oh, I think I always know when it's terrible. And a lot of times you'll know it in the moment, but you finish it knowing it's not usable, but just so you can have it out of your system. I need to overact for this moment because if I don't, I'll think that might be an option going forward. So if I just get it out of my system and I know it didn't work, that's fine. But the thing that does surprise me, and this doesn't really happen in theater so much, but on film, I will say it's not about terrible or not, but it's about there are moments that feel so incredibly powerful in the moment. And then you'll see it on screen and it'll be like, meh. And then there are moments that feel pretty damn stupid, usually because you're with a green screen or something that just doesn't feel legit. And then you'll be shocked at how amazing it is on screen. Just how the music and the lighting and the everything came together to just make it magical in that moment in ways that you couldn't see because you don't have those pieces in the moment. But it is hilarious when I'll think like, oh, that take was great. And I've never seen that where it was then awful, but I've definitely seen it where it was like, nah, you can do much better than that. You know? So again, just part of the process.
Got the job done, but maybe not.
Right. But it wasn't the magical thing that I thought I was getting to, you know?
So I guess a related question to all of this is, what do you think, or what are your feelings about the actor's role in the process of storytelling?
Well, I think it's incredibly important, but I am highly aware that every piece is important. So, you know, being an actor, you know, you are a prop, you're a voice, you're a body, you're a clothes hanger. You know, there's all kinds of things that you are, but you are also this mysterious, powerful force that can be really life-changing. I mean, I'm from the Midwest, and you know, there's sort of a sort of work hard humbleness that comes with Midwesterners, and so I've never, you know, like the idea of fandom has a very specific place in my life where I consider myself to be the conduit through which something showed up, and it's not possible for me to take full credit. And that's, what I mean by the Midwestern thing is I think that gives me a healthy perspective. But it's, what's amazing about fandom is that what makes someone love your work has almost nothing to do with you. It's almost entirely their story coming through your work and how it made them feel because of what's going on in their life and in their internal world. So you were just, you know, a helpful process to get them to see something from a certain perspective in their own life. And that doesn't negate any of the power of a performance or a production or a story, but it's understanding that there's layers to what that means. You know, entire fandoms exist mainly because of what the fandoms mean to each other and to themselves, not actually as much as what it seems like they're built around a property, and the property was the inspiration, but a fandom continues because of what they build amongst themselves and what they build inside themselves. So it's, you know, it's kind of this extraordinary thing where I'm totally part of something, but also not at all part of something. So it's a very strange mix, and I'm lucky to be part of it, but it's also kind of foreign at the same time.
Right, because it's you, but it's not really you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also because the character is a representation of something else for that person, almost always. You know, there's a lot of people that will, you know, felt you were a lifeline for something, and you may well have been, but it's because you were illustrating relief from something they were going through, or inspiration of how they could get through it, or even just distraction. You know, this was a terrible time in my life, but you made me laugh. And yes, it's me, but it's about their interpretation. Like it's a, you know, it's a commingled experience. It's a very layered experience. So it's not just one thing. It can never just be, oh, that's a superstar. While that exists, it's because of, you know, we like them not even because of who they are. We like them because of how they made us feel, what that meant to us at a moment when we were low, how that thing inspired us to look at life a whole new way. You know, it's all of these small details that really create the bigger picture.
Yeah, yeah. And you see that too, when you look at fan fiction communities and what they sort of build out of these existing properties, and the way that, the first example that leaps to mind is just the Harry Potter community, because they've taken what was and actually gave it more depth in some cases, and gave it more like nuance and subtlety than it actually has, because of what it meant to them. They were like, I love
Yeah.
this, but let me fix it.
That's beautifully put, but let me fix it. Yeah, it's just something that is bigger than any of us individually, and it takes all of those pieces to make any part of this work. So, yeah,
Yeah, it's a funny sort of collective experience.
for sure.
So you directed a documentary series. Did you enjoy that?
I did. It was a ton of fun. I loved it. I think part of it is because I am curious. I'm also someone who likes really effective ideas. And I came up with this idea of, at almost any personal appearance that you do, there will be downtime. And it's not really enough time to do something important, like, reading a script or following up on important emails or something like that. So it's time, but it's not really fruitful time. And I wanted it to be fruitful time. So I came up with this 3-question interview series. It's the same 3 questions for everyone. And I would do it at downtime at conventions mostly. I would also do it at downtime when I was on sets, when we're waiting for the next take and stuff like that. It was all done on my cell phone. And I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. I think the numbers are escaping me right now. I know I interviewed more than 700 people, but I can't remember if it was more than 700 celebrities or 700 people total. But it was hundreds of celebrities and hundreds of normal people. Normal people, what a terrible thing to say, but you know what I'm saying. It was co-stars and co-workers, and it was also people that I would meet along the way. And it was a really extraordinary experience because the answers, it was an impromptu series. No one knew the questions ahead of time. And that leads to the answers being really fascinating because you don't have time to censor. And so you just say what comes out. And for some people, these were 1-word answers where the entire interview would take 20 seconds. And for some people, they would go off on a tangent and it would be a 7-minute answer that would leave them crying. And that sort of thing was really, it just sort of, it was a great illustrator of both how similar and how diverse we all are, because the answers were so complicated, but also so complementary. And sometimes I would interview people more than one at a time, and to watch the way their answers would influence each other, and it would sort of become this spiral kind of a thing. But the main issue that sort of comes out of all of that is just, we're all just human trying to figure it out. And, these core truths of who we are as people and how we navigate life.
Yeah.
So it was just a very sweet project, and you can find it online on my YouTube channel. But it's fun. I mean, again, some of these interviews are 20 seconds long, so you can watch a ton of them at once and, be delighted and surprised and confused and, all of those things depending on the answers.
Yeah. What were the questions?
What is your favorite thing about you? And what is the best piece of advice that you have given or would give? And what is your best advice about the subject of love, any kind of love?
I bet you got a lot of interesting answers.
All kinds of them, because everyone sees that, all of the answers, everyone sees through the moment that they're in. So if you're asking about love, it's whatever is currently happening in their lives inevitably is shading that answer, whether they're madly in love or in a breakup or just had a baby or just lost a parent, or, any of those things would determine how they feel love plays a part in their life. And, same thing, the question, what is your favorite thing about you? I love this question. And you meet people where they are. And it's fascinating because you'll get these incredibly deep, dramatic, these answers that will just shock you about something that they understand deeply about themselves. Or someone else, it would be like, I've got great taste in sneakers. And that's equally valuable. But, just again, you're just meeting people where they are in the moment.
Would you ever do something like that again?
Oh, I'd love to. I had a really great experience with it. Directing comes easy to me in the sense, I'm not technically trained in that area, but it comes easy in the sense that I have a director producer's mind. Like no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm behind the scenes or an actor in a project, I sort of function as a producer director anyway. I'm always aware of all of the moving pieces and trying to figure out what's the best way for it to all come together. And I've been that way probably since I was a kid, when I was putting on plays as a kid, just trying to figure out how it makes the most sense and where the best creative solutions are, and how do we make this day, and how do we solve this problem, kind of a thing.
Interesting. So these two so acting and directing for you almost seem to hit the same parts of your brain in a way.
A bit, yeah, because it's all storytelling. Like I see myself as a vehicle in the storytelling, or if I was directing someone else, I would see them as the vehicle in the storytelling. So it's all the same sort of musculature to me. It's just the way in which it's unfolding.
Interesting. So I wanted to ask about mocap, because the mocap that you did for Force Unleashed was, I mean, I don't, how many years is it now? It's been a minute.
It has been a minute. I think that came out I think I started working on it in 2008, or,
Yeah.
I'm not the expert here. All of the fans in any comments will end up letting us know.
But that was, I mean, that was very cutting. It still looks great. I mean, that was like certainly cutting edge for the time, but it still looks great. But how is the mocap for you? Because some actors don't enjoy doing it.
Mocap is a challenge. I don't dislike it because I most of the time enjoy a challenge. And I've done mocap a few times, and you are right. It has definitely changed quickly. The process now is very different than it was then. And the thing about it that I find less satisfying is that all of my ways to cheat are completely gone. And what I mean is, when you do mocap, you have no makeup, you have no wardrobe, you have no props, you have no scenery. You're on a stage in what looks like a wetsuit, probably have a camera attached to your body. You oftentimes don't have any other actors because the technology usually doesn't allow the actors to interact because it messes up the parameters of the tech. So, like I did a mocap job a couple of years ago where I was this 1940s femme fatale. It was this kind of thing. I mean, like an old screen siren. I was so thrilled. I was excited beyond belief to be part of this project. But then you get there, and she was described as a mix of like, Rita Hayworth and Veronica Lake and, all of these incredible old movie sirens. And then you get there and you're in essentially a wetsuit, no makeup. You have dots all over your faces. You have no hair because has a hood. So no wardrobe, no makeup. There's no props. There's no other actors. And I'm just in a big blank space having to imagine everything that is there and then create the emotion from that. And the other thing the thing I found the most difficult about it was in this particular studio. It was huge. It was a giant studio, and they had big screens up on the walls that were filming you, or that were showing what they were filming. And so whenever you would maybe get into a moment of really feeling like that screen siren, and then you'd catch a glimpse of yourself. And it's so bananas. Like there's a camera on my head, and it's ridiculous. And it's like, what I like about that is that it is truly movie magic to be able to take something like that and get the end result that you get. That is an exquisite marriage of technology and acting and emotion and all of those things. But it's, for me, not as satisfying as if I had been in a film dressed as a femme fatale with other actors getting to play this juicy scene. And, it's just a different process. So it's cool because the tech is cool, but and also mocap is fun because you can do things that you literally couldn't do on screen, like be other creatures and things like that. But yeah, if I had my choice, particularly for that kind of role, I would like it to be,
on screen.
Yes, it would check all my, boxes to be able to be in some fabulous wardrobe and, going back in time for a minute.
Yeah. Well, I get that. I believe that when you say that, because you do seem to be a very physical person. You like to do the physical stuff. Like I watched your action reel at some point and just, sat there clapping like a baby seal because you really enjoy like throwing yourself in physically.
I do. I grew up as a dancer, so I have a connection to my body for sure. But I also just I think that the way someone speaks, you can also describe that with their body. How do they speak with their body? How do they communicate with, again, it's storytelling. How do I communicate in how I move, or in what is my posture? Or, it's as valuable to me as how does my voice sound? What do my clothes look like? All of those are very important pieces to making it feel authentic.
Yeah. Do you do, like how much of what you do is intentional and how much of it is just flowing out of your understanding of a character? If you can, I don't know if you can really quantify it, but
I don't know. I mean, I certainly sometimes surprise myself and I'll be like, wow, that was cool. Like I wasn't expecting that. But I'm also very type A personality. I'm super big into planning. I like to, it's funny because in real life, I'm definitely a perfectionist, but in a creative process, I really appreciate the mess. I believe it's all important and a natural, positive part of the process, so I don't let it trip me up. But yeah, I agree with you. Physicality is important to me. And it helps me understand the character. Even like for voice work, I have a trick that I do that for me makes a difference, where my trick for doing voiceover is I try to always wear the shoes that the character would wear. So if I'm playing a soldier, I wear boots. If I'm playing, somebody in high heels, I wear high heels, because it changes your posture. And that changes the way you deliver, and it helps you not forget that that's the type of character you are, especially if, there's like animatics that are not finished yet. So you can't really see what the character is going to look like in the end. So it's not that constant reminder. So if I can have a physical reminder that will change my posture, I try to do that.
Oh, interesting. That makes a lot of sense, actually. So I wanted to ask real quick, I wanted to just give you some space to talk about your charity work, because I know that you do a lot of stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Just you're involved in a few different things, I think, the literacy programs and other stuff. So
I
Um,
do a little bit of everything, whatever comes to me. But the main thing that I do actually just wrapped up about 2 weeks ago. I do an annual event that is almost exclusively for the Z-Nights. And the truth is, it wouldn't work without them. This was our 20th year of doing an annual event. I've done cocktail parties and dinners. I've done auctions. But the main thing that I've done the last several years is a big raffle every year where we have a ton of merchandise and it's just a raffle. Everybody has equal chance of winning. And it only works because all of the pieces are co-created. So all of the merchandise is donated to me every year. So it's always a mystery if I'm going to have another event because I have to wait to see if things are, going to be donated. But the last few years, we've had some really great things that have shown up and have allowed us to continue doing these raffles. So that's the main thing. Almost every year, we support families that are dealing with medical expenses. We don't raise enough to change somebody's life, but we definitely raise enough to change someone's day and just let them know that people are thinking about them. And, we try to support multiple families each year with just a gift that they can use how they want and how they need at that point. And all of this started because of the whole greater good concept within the Z-Night community. And it was something that was active at the very first conventions I ever did. And when those started to wane, I had all of this merch of my own because I like to save things. And then eventually I'm like, I don't need all of these things. And there was a medical emergency within my circle, and I was just trying to figure out how can I help. And so the very first event was to help someone specific that I knew, that I just decided to auction off all of my everything I had left from the show, from Xena, and anything else I had worked on since then. Anything I could think of, I would raffle. And yeah, that's how it started. So, it's kind of fun and exciting. And I mean, I'll be honest, I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun because it's a lot of work. So, we'll see if it happens again next year, but I'm definitely planning on it. I've had a couple of people reach out saying that they have some donations that should be coming my way, which means next year we'll get to have another one. So fingers, eyes, and toes crossed.
um, well, that's terrific. I love that. I mean, I know, like, Stephen and I spoke, said that there's a lot of Xena raffle stuff and charity stuff that you guys do. So it's really wonderful that there's still this fan base that's so passionate that you're able to do this for people.
Well, it's also fascinating to me that every year there's brand new young people that are involved. So, that's the thing that I find the most fascinating is that, a 19-year-old discovered it, that summer between semesters and has become obsessed in this new way. And I love that they see it through these fresh eyes with this new perspective and, all sorts of new layers and meaning and all of that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I think for young queer audiences, there's not many other things like Xena. Um,
Yeah.
you know, like we've started seeing some more representation, I think, but either the shows get canceled.
Mm,
You had that vampire show on Netflix, you had Warrior Nun, you had these other shows. So either the shows get canceled or one of them gets shot or something.
yeah,
And we still feel, I feel like we still haven't quite moved past that. And whatever sort of workarounds Steven and the gang had to do to make things happen, Xena's
sure.
story was essentially a complete story. And like, I don't actually, now that I'm just kind of thinking of this actually off the top of my head now as we're talking, but I don't know really how many of those we actually have.
Well, certainly not enough. I mean, that's the obvious answer.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons that it feels a bit timeless. I think there are some aesthetic things that help, just the idea that New Zealand was so stunningly beautiful and it's just candy to the eyes to watch. Not to mention most of the cast was also. So, that was joyful, but also, Xena has these beautiful dramatic moments, but they're right up against all of these ridiculous campy moments. And, there's something that's also glorious about that. Like, not everyone loves that, but there's something about that I think makes it easier, more palatable for a lot of people to jump in. So it's not just drama, drama, drama every week. And of course, there's in a lot of queer programming, you have a history of camp. And so, there's something about that I think is welcome in that sphere where it's not necessarily celebrated as much in other areas.
Yeah.
So, it was just sort of this delightful combination that all fell together and worked. So,
Yeah, I mean, I hadn't watched Xena in ages, and I wanted to go back and watch some of the favorites before I sat down with Steven, and I put on the first episode, and it kicks right in with a fight scene, and I had forgotten all the little kung fu sound effects.
it's ridiculous. Like, my favorite is when there's like a blink blink sound. Like, really?
Whips her hair, and you get the whoosh sound.
Right.
Oh man, yeah, no, that was just amazing. But yeah, I just it's funny, like just thinking about it now. Like we don't. I feel like there isn't there isn't a lot. There aren't a lot of shows that give what that show gave us, and I think that's why you still see new fandoms, new fan fictions, new people coming in every year.
Yeah, I think you're right. I can't deny that it sounds absolutely perfect.
Okay, so I don't want to eat up your whole day. I usually like to do a little speed round at the end before show and tell. So this is just answer from the gut. Now, I usually like to do this based on one of the roles that you've done. I think since we're talking about Xena, I'm going to stay with Xena.
Sure.
So we'll just do a couple of quick warm-up questions, and then we'll get into the character questions.
Okay.
Okay. Which M&M is the best tasting color M&M?
Green, hands down.
All right. Super salad.
Can I do half and half?
Okay. Tea or coffee?
Oh, tea all the way.
Star Trek or Star Wars? And you've been in both, I know. So
I have to abstain. It's not, I'm going to piss somebody off.
digital or analog?
It depends. It has to be more specific because I'm analog for some things and digital for other. Like, I prefer books over like a Kindle.
Fair. Music?
Well, I like having music on my phone everywhere I go.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So now we're going to get into some Xena questions.
Okay.
One character from Xena that not your character, but you, right? One character from Xena that you'd want to have a drink with. Or
well, if I could have a drink with anyone, it would be with Kevin Smith. So, it's almost an unfair answer, but none of us got enough time with him.
Now, would it be him also if there was an ensuing barroom brawl?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I would hide behind him any day.
Okay. Now, who would you want to have by your side if you were at a table full of lawyers?
Aphrodite, to distract everyone with all of those incredible outfits and that wild hair.
Interesting. I want to say Stephen might have said Autolycus.
True.
Now, one character that you would want with you if you were at a high-stakes blackjack table.
I mean, I want to say Xena. It's a little bit weird because why are my mom and I playing blackjack? But I just feel like that's the way I got to go.
That's valid. and then one that you would make awkward excuses not to hang out with. Like, so it's not like intense, like, personal, like you want to avoid them, but they just weird you out or you don't really like them.
The Furies weird me out. Like a little bit of fury goes a long way for me. Like all that cackling and craziness.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's valid. I have to support that answer. So, all right. So you mentioned you did bring something for show and tell. What have you brought?
I did. Maybe no one else will find this exciting, but I'm in love with it, so I'm going to show it. So I mentioned that I get a lot of memorabilia because of the charity events that I run, but I'm not really I don't mean this in a bad way, but I'm not really a Xena fan. Like I don't have any Xena stuff in my house. I have behind the scenes pictures that I took, but that's pretty much it. And there were 3 things at the end of the series that I wanted that I wasn't allowed to keep. And those were kind of the only things I wanted. So I had this. So every year there's cool new merchandise that I see that I did not know existed. And last year, for the first time, I saw this Xena sword that's like this big. I think it's technically a letter opener, but it's just this cool mini sword, beautifully done. But they, of course, didn't make anything like that for Livia or Eve. But I just today, or not today, but this year, it hit me. I was like, that's the kind of thing I would actually really like. I don't need a full-size sword, but if I could have a little sword, I would love it. So I reached out to this woman, Tammy Potter, who is famous for being a Xena cosplayer, but she's also a weapon maker. She makes all kinds of things beautifully done. And I asked her if she could create this for me. And she was like, I'm on it. Consider it done. And so here's my tiny sword that I'm obsessed with. I love it so much. And so this is the sword that I had as Livia, as the bitch of Rome. But, it could also just be a toothpick or something.
Letter opener. I would be afraid to put that in my mouth, probably, but no,
True.
beautiful. Like the texture on the hilt and everything, like that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see it all, but it's incredibly well done. And all of this and some of what you see here, Livia's costume was incredibly well thought out. And there's a very specific type of fern that grows in New Zealand that was the print that all of the armor had on it.
Mhm.
And, so it was all of this filigree, but it also had this New Zealand story behind it. And that's also what's here up on top is all of this fern action that's up here. So I just think it's special because it has personal meaning to me, but I also just think the greater story that they told with all of the pieces, again, going back to storytelling, I just thought it was so cohesive and just beautifully done.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that is a beautiful show and tell. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely. And shout out to Tammy because it would not exist without her.
Right. So I'm just going to do a wrap up and then,
Sure.
then we'll wrap up. That's our show, you beautiful nerds. What a season you guys are in for. I've been your host, Jen Jackalone. Please hit like and subscribe if you've enjoyed this chat, and check out the link in the description to follow Adrienne's socials and keep up on her amazing work. And if you haven't watched Xena Warrior Princess yet, what are you doing with your life? It has been a blast bringing you folks the goodies. Stay hydrated, nerds. Take care. Take it easy. Stay geeky.